The other night, my son and I were having a wonderful conversation on the telephone about some reading that he had been doing recently about the latest scientific insights into the universe, its size and its age. He said to me, "Dad, this stuff just blows your mind away." Yeah, it does. Science is blowing our minds away these days. The Big Bang Theory, probably the best scientific theory that we have to describe how what came into being, says that space and time emerged almost 14 billion years ago, and that the universe has been expanding ever since then. While the spatial size of the entire universe is unknown, it's beyond our ability to fathom, it is possible to measure the size of the observable universe, which, according to the way scientists describe it, is approximately 93 billion light years in diameter at the present time, and it is growing. Can you get your mind around that? I sure can't. And that, by the way, is speaking only of the observable universe. Try to grasp the size of the unobservable universe. Science is making my mouth drop, is causing me to live with such wonder and mystery. Psalm writer must have experienced the same thing. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what are human beings that you are mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? We, in some way, are a part of this big, mysterious, wonder-filled universe. It is absolutely amazing that you and I exist at all. Creation is gargantuan, massive. Yet human life, my life, and your life nonetheless springs forth. When I say that, I think about my own situation. My parents told me that they were trying to have a baby for the fourth time, and frankly, they wanted a boy. They had enough girls. There were 3 of them, and they wanted a boy. And so my mom gave birth to a girl named Robin. And because the doctor wasn't on time to deliver, the baby was born dead. And I always think, if that baby hadn't been born dead, I might not be around. It is mysterious that I even exist. Human life springs forth. Let's be honest, a lot of things had to come together to make you and me possible. Science is, as Mark Besteman the other day said about my teaching, making my mind hurt. In a good way, I could say, in a life-expanding and probably humbling way. Creation itself is amazing. That we get to share in it for however long is really cool. And science is helping us see that. Now, Genesis 1 and 2, from which we receive our first reading for today, a reading that seemed to go on forever. I realize, you got to the 3rd day and you knew the story well enough. We got 4 more days to go, Genesis 1 and 2, that wonderful reading, thanks Paul for reading it. It's not science. You got to understand this. It is not meant to be science. Let's make that clear from the outside. Can I say it again? It's not science. It's not history. This wonderful story about the 7 days of creation is not a description of what happened once upon a time. It's poetry. Some folks like to call it liturgy. You will notice that it follows a definite pattern, as does liturgy, the kind of thing we do in worship. It was evening and morning the first day. It was evening and morning the second day. It was evening and morning the third day. And God saw that it was good, and it was good, and it was good. Maybe, we don't know this for sure, but maybe Israel used this liturgy in its worship. Maybe the repetition helped them participate in it. And by the way, that's the point of liturgy. You know the lines. And so you can repeat them. And I say to you, the Lord be with you. And you say, and I say in the prayers, Lord, in your mercy. And you say, hear our prayers. That's the point of liturgy. You can participate. Liturgy is meant to enable participation. And this poetic, liturgical piece was meant to help Israel, a tiny little speck in history, to see itself within a bigger story, to place itself in the giant narrative of creation itself. This story wasn't doing science, it was doing theology. It was pointing to the really big in light of a specific situation in Israel's history. This piece wasn't written, or probably better put, wasn't edited for some general purpose, to make Israel get lost in the greatness of it all. Now, by the way, I think that's quite helpful. Once in a while, you and I need to stand out under the stars and just get lost in the bigness of it all. But that wasn't the primary purpose of this reading. Walter Brueggemann suggests that this poem became important for Israel during the time of its exile, the time when Israel found itself dealing with the Babylonians, the horrible Babylonians who had destroyed their city, destroyed their temple, and sent off into exile their brightest and best. The exile was a phenomenally chaotic time, a time that caused some to wonder if the scary Babylonian sea monsters, and you will notice that sea monsters are mentioned in the reading today, that these terrible sea monsters might be running the show. They're afraid. Israel's afraid of that. Life felt as if it had no order. Israel felt as if God had abandoned them, as if they didn't really matter in any big way. The poet, often known as the priestly writer, priests appreciate liturgy and order, is trying to address the chaos by pointing to what some people call creation faith, the sense that life and all of creation are not characterized by disorder, that hidden with what feels to be out of controlness is an order that can be trusted, an order discovered in the universe. If you get this, you begin to understand that Israel's poetry here is much more significant than having a map of what happened many years ago. Believing data about the past is not risky or life-changing. It's simply an intellectual exercise, even if the intellectualism is not very intellectual at all, as is the case for our friends in northern Kentucky who run the Creation Museum, insisting that the world is only 6,000 years old and that the dinosaurs were on the ark with Noah, and that the 7-day creation story is a description of what literally happened once upon a time. It's bad, bad, bad intellectualism, but truthfully, it doesn't demand much from us except us to believe some crazy data and to put our heads on the back burner. But to trust, and here's the bigger point. This has to do with your life and mine, but to trust that in the midst of the vagaries, the whims, the heartbreaking challenges of life, there is an order that can be trusted and can send us forward into the future with some degree of courage is a much more significant and, frankly, much riskier endeavor. I personally have a lot going on in my life right now, and you got a lot going on in your life right now. Is it time to give up? Is it time to throw in the towel? Is it time to abandon the things that we have known and trusted in the past? Does exile mean that Israel has no purpose now? Do your challenges mean that you don't really matter? That your little life has no significance? Did you notice that God, in the midst of creating everything, also created human beings on the 6th day? Human beings, the story really is saying, they're not everything. And we must get that, by the way. God created a whole bunch of stuff on many other days. We who think that we are the end-all and the be-all have really done a disservice to the world. It's part of why we have foisted so much damage on the natural environment. It's all about us, we have believed. Well, it's not. But note this, nonetheless. We are included in the glory of creation. We are integral to creation. That is to say, your life matters. My life matters. We are created in the image of God. We have been given great responsibility. Listen to what Psalm 8 says. You, O God, have made humans a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. Glory and honor in the Bible, that's normally reserved for God alone. And we here in the psalm are said to have it. And the psalm goes on to say, you, O God, have given us dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under our feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea. Wow! We have great responsibility. Not only do our lives matter, and they matter greatly, but we got work to do. It's not time to give up. It's not time to feel as if we're abandoned and we shouldn't go forward. It's not time to let it all go. It's time to get to work. The world needs us. Graduates, hear this. The world needs us. Creation needs you. Israel, your life as a community has its roots in the purposes of God from the very beginning. Your presence in the world matters. It's not time to abandon the work of faith. And the same is true for you. Little old you, who lives in the 14th billion year of the universe and who takes up a dusty speck of the space of the universe that is 93 billion light years in diameter, are integral to what life is about, to what creation means. Now, truthfully, I could sit down right now. What I just had to say was, that's my kind of stuff. That's really good, and it's a significant message for all of us. But it's not enough. Because honestly, I wouldn't have done my work today in addressing the subject of the weekend, the Trinity. I've always been intrigued by the reality that on Trinity Sunday we're given this psalm in particular, but also the first reading, that speaks of the glory of human beings. It's as if the glorious God doesn't need all the glory. These readings make me think that God is very secure in God's self. He can share the limelight with others, with us. The Trinity is the name we give God. It's the name we give to what we think is the order of the universe. Creation faith wants to discover order, not just because we want to, but for the sake of moving forward into life. The Trinity describes the order, and interestingly enough, it describes the order in terms of what can be considered a bit messy relationship. The Son with the Father, and the Father with the Son, and the Spirit with the Father and the Son. It's weird talk, but it's our way of saying that relationship is integral to what life means and what gives shape and order to life. The story from Genesis makes it quite clear that God desires to be in relationship. Walter Brueggemann puts it this way: against every other way of discerning the world, this liturgy, this poetry of Genesis 1 and 2, affirms that we are fully and gladly the creation of God. God creates humans because God wants to be in relationship. And the Trinity suggests that God so much wants to be in relationship that God is relationship itself. What's the point of your life? A lot of you are asking that question. Many people need to be asking that question. What's the purpose of living? What will provide the order that we need to move forward into an unknown future? Relationship. Relationship with the one who made it all, the one who redeems it all, brings healing to the messes we have created, and the one who sustains it all and will bring it all to a glorious conclusion. And the relationship with this one is mirrored in the relationships we have with one another. After all, you and I are made in the image and likeness of God. Part of the glory of being fully and gladly the creation of God is found in the privilege we have to do this thing called life together. You want to know what it's all about? It's all about relationship.